The Collective Whisper Podcast with Simon King. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's Collective Whisper Podcast. I am your host, Simon King. So I hope you're all doing well, and I hope you're enjoying the episodes we're giving you so far, and the great content, and the great guests. We'd also like to remind you, please like the show, share the show, tell everybody you know if you like the podcast. Thank you very much. We appreciate it a lot. Today, I will be talking with Eoin Bailey. Eoin Bailey is an English journalist and poet living in West Cork who was arrested twice and convicted in absentia in relation to the murder of French film producer Sophie Toscan du Plantier on the 23rd of December 1996, but maintains his innocence. Eoin Kenneth Bailey was born in Manchester, England. He worked variously as a freelance journalist, sometimes published under the name Eoin Bailey. He moved to Ireland in 1991 and lived with his partner Jules Thomas in Goleen from 1992 until their separation in 2021. In 2019, he was tried and convicted in a French court for the murder of Sophie Toscan du Plantier and sentenced to 25 years in a French prison. The Irish government refused to recognise the court proceedings and thus far have not granted the extradition. This year, the Gardaí will open this cold case for further review, with Eoin Bailey offering to assist him in any way possible. So, Eoin Bailey, welcome to the show. How are you?
Tommy Gamar, I'm not too bad, thank you very much.
Very good.
We've been sweltering away as the whole world is sort of burning up at the moment, it would appear. But anyway. No.
Yeah, because obviously I'm in Alicante in Spain, but you're in Ireland, so the weather is pretty warm in Ireland still at the moment, isn't it?
No, it's actually gone. It's been very pleasant today. It's about 22 degrees, nice cool sea breeze. I had actually, funnily enough, on the topic of Spain and Madrid, and it was the last time I was ever able to travel abroad before a thing called a European arrest warrant was issued against me back in 2000 and I can't quite remember the dates. Was actually Barcelona. It was 2007 actually, the first one, I think, or 2008.
Okay.
But I came back from Barcelona and so. Anyway, very many happy memories of Madrid and Barcelona.
Okay, very good. I always, before we kind of get into your life now, I always like to go back to kind of just obviously your early life and, you know, what set you out on the road to becoming a journalist and what influenced your poetry and all of these things. So you were born in Manchester, yes?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Tell us about life in Manchester.
Well, I was born in St Mary's Hospital, Manchester, but then my parents actually, my father was a butcher and he had a butcher shop in Stockport with my Kenneth, with my mother Bren, bless her. And so I grew up actually in Stockport, although I used to go to Manchester. We used to go most Saturdays for the flicks, the cinemas. And that's one of my earliest recollections, actually. And you touched on the question of poetry there. And my father Ken was he taught me how to read, and my mother taught me how to write. And it's interesting, the first significant non-nursery rhyme poem that I think I remember, and he gave it to me, it's a very good poem, is by Rudyard Kipling called If. And I think a lot of people know that, you know, if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on me or you.
That's a great poem.
It's a great poem. It should be in the curriculum globally. It's advice, obviously, from a father to a son. Could be advice to a mother to a daughter, actually, as well.
Yes, of course.
I've always wanted it in mind, Simon.
Yes.
You know, and when everybody was blaming certain things on me, were losing their heads, I was trying to keep
your head about you. And when you were in the UK and, you know, you had your life there and you were working as a journalist for different newspapers, and then tell us about, you know, the change then that made you want to go to Ireland. Like what was the thing that you said, I'd like to go?
It's interesting because I celebrated I'm 30 years of blow-in, and I've just written a poem called 30 Years of Blow-in on Midsummer's Day, 1991. I came to Ireland. But very short, long story short, I was I'd been working as a journalist, Fleet Street journalist, special correspondent for many years. Most of my friends in London were Irish people, and I had quite a lot of contacts with Ireland. I'd been to Ireland in the 80s, and I had contacts, and I thought, actually, I don't like this place. I don't like the politics. I don't like the way it's going. And because obviously a common language inflicted on you by the Sassanar, by the way, you know, English. I was able to function when I came over as a journalist, and so I left my home and came over here, and I don't regret. Well, I regret one or two things, but 30 years I've been here now. So
Okay, and why predominantly Cork and, school in that area?
I had a contact with again, a long story short. So a friend of mine had his father had a place in Crookhaven, and right down in the southwest of Cork, and the finger of the Mizzen, as it were, thumb of the Mizzen. And I came over, and so initially when I left England, London, left the heart of decomposing nation, took the tube train for the station. I came to Crookhaven. I had a storage place for all my clothing. I spent a bit of time there, and then I went off on a sort of romantic ramble around Ireland. I had friends and jobs to go to, and that was the beginning.
Okay. And Cork kind of had a certain appeal to you above other places?
I just fell in. Do you know what? I've been analysing this. I fell in love with. Now, love is a very funny thing, isn't it? It's a very multifaceted thing, love. And you can fall in love with a person. You can fall in love with different things. I fell in love with a place, a people, and a culture.
Okay.
And the great thing about falling in love with a place, a people, and a culture is your heart's never going to be broken, because they're never going to say
No.
the journey's over.
Well, I suppose, these places in Cork, they can be very remote, but at the same time, they're great places, and, the people are great, and there's a great culture, and you can see why a lot of people flock to these places.
Yeah, and of course you see, but one of the things the English don't. By the way, I'm more Welsh than I am English. So one of the things the English really don't have that the Irish have in abundance is a thing called the crack. And we're not talking about
Not that crack, the other crack.
and it's wonderful. I mean, the people are just great and lovely, and the culture, the music, the poetry, and yeah.
Okay, and so when you came to school and you were in that town, and it's a small town, and where you were living is very remote, this location, did you feel that there was a lot of blow-ins, as you call them, in the town already, and you fitted in quite easily?
Well, I don't know if I fitted in quite easily. I mean, to fit me in easily would be to say, fitting a square into a circle. But I found work in the winter of 1990. That was 1991, rather. That was the year I came across. And I found work in Skull in the winter. I found a home to rent. And I was, working away. And then I met a lady, a Welsh lady, Jules Thomas, my ex-partner now. Thus began a drama, a melodrama. I'm being very flippant. I'm in a very flippant mood at the moment, and you might ask me later on why I'm in a flippant mood.
A melodrama. Okay. Don't worry. From what I've seen of you over the years, just in different interviews and from some of those documentaries you were saying, you're a very intelligent man, and you like to even have a challenge in a conversation. You like that dialogue, don't you?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I don't know about an intelligent person.
Of course.
All I know is I've got a lot to learn yet. I learn every day, But I'm by nature, and I was from an early age, journalism to an end, in effect, to a career, making money, paying the bills. I like people, and I'm just, and I'm making the best of a bad lot, you might say, because it's been 25 years now since I was falsely accused of a crime I had nothing to do with, and after a quarter of a century, there's just been a fairly tectonic shift in the events. So you probably know this.
Yes, yes. When we look back at the events and what happened with the murder of Sophie Toscan du Plantier, and obviously all of the things that have happened since.
Just on that, I have nothing to do with it. I have the greatest respect for her family, and I think it's just such a tragedy. Anyway, so yeah.
Yeah, of course, and we appreciate you saying that too. Going back to that time, because it's been a long 25 years, I imagine, for you, and you've had, many run-ins with the Gardaí, and, you've been in court lots of times, and you're always trying to prove your innocence. And one of the things that I kind of get from all of this as well is that your relationship with the people of Skull has changed dramatically over the years, from when you first got there to now, even, no?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I was in Skull on Sunday doing a market. I've got a lot of friends in Skull. And I don't know. I can't really answer that one. All I know is I got,
Okay.
For instance, last Sunday I went there. I got a great reception. I did, yeah. I got a really warm reception, and I was selling my various products, my poetry, and I mean, I might as well use this as a plug. I've now got a T-shirt as well, which has it's Juleen,
Oh, it's Juleen.
which means, as you know, and Irish people know, yes, we can.
Yes, we can, like Barack Obama.
It is Barack Obama,
yes,
translated into Skelga.
When you went there, because I want to talk about some of the things, obviously, that have been said about you by the people in Skull. So, for some people, when you came to the town, they felt you were imposing and you were somebody who made their presence felt. So, do you think that this legend of you, of who you are, also was detrimental to you in the fact that people said, oh, it must be this guy because he is intimidating? Do you think that people used your character against you?
No, well, I mean, I'd probably dispute what you said initially, but I mean, just on a particular point, when this terrible crime that I had nothing to do with happened, and I was the lead reporter on it, we do know that guards, and this has been commented on in official documents, a DPP's report, the guards went around knocking on people's doors, asking them questions, and then telling them that I was the murderer. And even our neighbours,
Okay.
At the time, I mean, I was living in a very rural area. I'm in more an urban area at the moment. But, so there was a prejudice. And the definitive document on the whole thing is a DPP's report published in 2001, in which the DPP's officer refers to this case of the investigation. He rejects all of the so-called evidence that's been hatched up and manufactured against me, and says the investigation was thoroughly flawed and prejudiced.
Okay. With all the evidence, because some would say...
Well, on that point, don't forget I'm a lawyer as well with three degrees.
Everything I say to you is not coming from a place where I'm accusing you. Everything I'm saying to you is with the evidence, where some people would say it's damning to you, and obviously with the French court saying it's damning. Do you think that a lot of that evidence obviously is circumstantial and it had been influenced by the Gardaí?
Well, I mean, I'm a lawyer, okay, with 3 degrees of law, first-class master's. I understand what evidence means in common law. There was never any evidence. There may have been some, what you might call circumstantial, but there were false statements manufactured, and people were persuaded to lie in statements which have been long retracted.
Yes.
And as we know, it led to the culmination of me being tried in my absence in Paris in 2019. Now, there's been a significant change of very recently. So just to explain to your listeners and viewers, so for 25 years, I've been cast in the role of the murderer or the suspect. I was tried in France in my absence on a stack of statements which had been long rejected, overturned, or withdrawn in Ireland. Now it turns out, apparently, there is a living French suspect somewhere in France. And I always said right from the beginning, my instinct as a lead journalist, and other people shared this feeling as well, that it was somehow the place where the lady lived was so isolated, you would not find it. You couldn't possibly find it in a month of Sundays. It was so isolated. Somebody knew that she was coming over, And I believe that it was then, 25 years ago, 25 and a half years ago, an assassination from France. And I still believe that to be the case. And it would appear there is new information that's come out. I'm not sure who and where from, which will hopefully, in the not too far distant future, before I'm dead, lead to my complete vindication.
Okay. And because this is the thing for the viewer or somebody who comes onto this case in a new manner, the way it's all stacked up, it just points to you. And that, that's my honest opinion. It just points to you. But I'm not saying that it is you.
Simon, I mean, I would take issue with you on that no, it doesn't point to me. There was a conspiracy to pervert the course of justice by now many dead members of Angara Shiakana.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, Ian. Sorry, I'm not saying that it is you. What I'm saying is they have made it seem with all these documentaries and with all of the evidence that they're saying, oh, it's damning. Look at it. But what you're saying is what I agree with is that there's far more things that have been used against you. So I'm not saying it's you. What I'm trying to say is they have made it look like it's you.
Oh, there was definitely a deliberate attempt to put me. Well, do you know what? I mean, the best similarity I can use is the Birmingham 6 and the Guildford 4. And it's a form of investigation which is known in policing terms or criminology terms as result-oriented investigation.
Okay.
And it's where you decide I'm going to put so-and-so, I'm going to put Simon, you in the frame.
Right.
And once I've decided that, I don't need to bother going anywhere else, do I? Because I'm going to put you in the frame. And then it's only a case of manufacturing the evidence to try to put you in the box. And that's what went on.
Build the case around that suspect.
Yeah, absolutely. And instead of going, I mean, there were 56 suspects initially. And of those 56, there was a book, and I was one of them. When GSOC, the independent Garda oversight of investigating authority, looked at it, when they found the book with the suspects in, guess what? They found that somebody had sliced out all of the other suspects, 56 of them. It was a clean line. It must have been like a razor blade or something used. And there's only one suspect in the book, and that's me.
Wow. Do you think for the Gardaí at that time, it was just easy to point the finger at you because you lived close to her and they could make it seem like a good fit? Or do you think they had something against you?
Maybe a bit of both. I think there was definitely, I got the sense of xenophobia when I was being interrogated.
Okay.
But two, the chief detective actually told a friend of mine, I won't mention his name, he's a detective, he featured in both documentaries. Yeah. Everybody knows him over here, from Kerry. And he said I was the ideal suspect, And I think from his point of view, that about sums it up. I was the ideal suspect. I know I was sort of English. I maybe have been a bit brash. I think I probably was a little bit brash because I came out of London, over to a rural island, and I had a bit of my London, maybe, bollocks and brashness about me. But, I hopefully dropped that a long time ago.
Right. Well, it's easy to see in those small towns. It doesn't matter if it's a Yank coming to a small town in the UK or an Englishman coming to a small town in Ireland, is that sometimes people can take offense to your manner or your character or your mannerisms. So always you'll stand out.
I think now in the island of 2022 that we live in, this island, I've been here 30 years. When I first came here, the milk was being delivered to the creamery in the horse and cart, largely. And within a couple of years, there was only one last farmer delivering his milk. Ireland is a very, very vibrant, exciting, multicultural place now. It's moved on hugely. It's not the island that it was 25 years ago, that's for sure.
If we look at, again, I'm going to use this word evidence, because what is the evidence if it's circumstantial, if it doesn't exist? And a lot of the evidence now, some of it's disappeared. Mm-hmm. But let's just look at some of the items in it. So, for example, the metal gate. How does the metal gate disappear? How does that happen?
Well, I mean, that's a very good question. And it was a 6-bar metal gate, blood splattered. I saw the scene of crime photographs, which apparently and unexplainedly to this day just happened to disappear or be disappeared.
That's crazy.
I know it is. And I think the thing is this, any evidence that was suggestive of my innocence was lost.
Right.
Interestingly enough. Now, there have been, so just to bring your listeners and viewers up to date, there's been a cold case. Now, last March, I wrote to the new Commissioner of Ngada Síochána, Drew Harris, as a clean pair of hands. In other words, he wasn't involved in the original case. He only relatively recently came in to the island from the north, and asked him for a cold case review. Now, I think about a month ago, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, I heard that there is going to be a completely comprehensive cold case review. And at the same time, only from media reports I hear this, that there is a suspect now in France.
Okay.
Now, that cold case review will take, I don't know, probably quite a while. It's a very, very complicated case. Now, you touched on evidence and DNA. Well, I mentioned DNA. So DNA technology has moved on hugely. We know from, and this is true, that there was what I call alien blood DNA found on her. That's to say, not of the victims, Madame de Plantier.
Okay.
Now, there was a spot found on the back door of the house and also on her boot that was not, and they had my blood, by the way, they had my DNA, so it obviously wasn't mine. And now, with the new techniques that have occurred in scientific advancement, I'm hoping that it's going to be possible. And you probably know this, that you can now tell from the tiniest bit of DNA the sex of the person and actually where they come from, the ethnicity of them. It's always be my great prayer, and my prayer for Jules as well. I know it's her prayer that the truth come out, and that I am exonerated, and the real murderer is identified. And that would be, that would be for me, obviously.
Yeah, it would be vindication. Yeah. Can I ask you then about the suspect? Because we won't just talk about the suspect just yet, but when that cold case suspect, is he a suspect by the French authorities or the Irish authorities?
I'm not sure about this, but I think maybe more the Irish authorities. I don't know, to be honest, and we're going to have to just wait and see where this goes. But
okay.
Now, one thing I can tell you is this, and your listeners and viewers, that there was a story in the Sunday Independent this Sunday, which was an interview with a respected Sunday Independent journalist, and the French ambassador to Ireland, who was talking about this case to her, and he said that the significant thing he said was that the French authorities will give the Irish authorities every help and consideration they can in their cold case investigation, which is, very good and positive.
Okay, because it would be a shame if the ruling that they made already, and with the extradition currently are trying to be in progress, it would be a shame if they stopped proceedings and stopped investigating because they feel they have a verdict. Because even if you were
I think that was the initial view in France last year when this matter was raised, that the French said, "Oh no, we know it is. It's that
we have our man,
Bailey, and we just want him." And as your listeners will probably know or not know, I was actually arrested twice domestically for murder, as was my partner. And then on top of that, I was arrested 3 times on European arrest warrants, which were challenged by myself here with my Frank Buttermer of Cork. Thank you very much, Frank. And rejected by the Irish courts, including the Supreme Court.
Okay.
Nobody in the world, Simon, has been through this before. Nobody has been through anything like this before. They tried their damnedest to, get me. And now and I noticed the uncle of the victim in France, Professor Gazot, has for the first time acknowledged that it may not be that English or Welsh so-and-so Bailey.
Right. Okay. Well, that will be good for you. And can I ask then about when you see and hear the so-called evidence that they have, and when they talk about, which was, for me was something that you explained, but they put it in a different way, whereas the scratches on your arm, the nick on your forehead. So you gave your explanation, but you had the Italian girl who was staying in the house, and she came forward and testified. So for you,
she's right. So let's get everything in all in a row. Right. So I did have some light scratches on my arm at that Christmas from cutting down a Christmas, shimmying up a Christmas, cutting down, killing 3 turkeys, and I got a little scratch on my forehead. And this is all witnessed, by the way, by other people. And then there was a guest, a lady, an Italian lady, staying at the house, and she was then Netflix last year went out and made a documentary, or over a couple of years. They got to the French girl and they persuaded her to make some sort of erroneous statement that she'd seen in a bucket in the bathroom a black coat. She's since retracted that statement and said she was under great emotional stress at the time, and said it to, I don't know why she said it, she's apologized to Jules, my ex-partner, on the nonsense. So the black coat, why is that important? Well, I do have now still, I have new black coats, winter coats, lovely, I have
Yes.
whatever. But the suggestion, I think, was that I'd been wearing that coat at the time I committed the crime, and it was maybe there was blood on it, and that I destroyed the coat. The interesting thing is that in the Netflix documentary, the chief detective who's interviewed lies to camera by saying I destroyed the coat. And the reason I can prove it's an absolute lie is because on the first arrest, which was on the, I think, 12th or 13th of February 1997, a lot of my clothing items were taken away. Eventually, I got them back. Well, I got a list of the items that were taken, and number one on the top of the list is a long black coat. And the story in the Netflix was I had somehow destroyed this long black coat, and yet there, in black and white evidence, it's a fact that the police took my long black coat. I never got it back. A bit like what happened to it, I don't know. It's a bit like the disappearing 6-bar gate. Never been explained.
So when they talk in the documentary about the mattress and the burning of the clothes and finding the buttons and that stuff, that's totally false.
The buttons is a load of. I'll tell you what. The buttons is a load of fucking bollocks. And sorry to use that language, but
no, speak away, speak freely.
I mean, I've only seen one sequence from the Netflix. Okay, right now. Buttons tend to be made, and the coat in question was my grandfather's old railwayman coat. I'd had it for years. It was a lovely, but thick, really winter coat. The buttons were made of either a plastic or Bakelite. Right? If you have a fire, they melt.
Yeah.
The forensic man to say that there were buttons found in the fire is an absolute. Well, he's lying. He's lying.
Right. Because when they found the mattress freshly burning, or they said it was freshly burning, and they say they found clothes within it, but I mean,
which was untrue. We'd had a fire in November when we were clearing out what we call Jules' studio house, and there was an old mouse-infested horsehair mattress, and we dragged it out. It's very, very heavy. We dragged it out of the place. And we put it on a fire, and that was back in October, November. And the suggestion that there was a new fire and I'd been burning evidential matter at Christmas after the murder is a total lie.
Okay, yeah,
and a provable lie as well, I think.
Yeah, because see, when people watch these kind of shows, they see the evidence as the editor of the show or the producer wants them to see it. So you have a one-sided story. So you never see it completely, and you never see if something is fabricated.
No, and I mean the Netflix people. I call Netflix the devil's very own channel, but everybody's entitled to their views. And there are actually, I believe at the moment, there are legal proceedings being taken against Netflix by different individuals to do with that program, and I don't want to go too much into that because
okay, yeah,
there are. When something's before the law, you really shouldn't be really commenting about it too much. I take your point that people would have believed. You see, if you believe the Netflix, which I knew was always going to be a non-objective, demonizing piece of propaganda, as opposed to the Jim Sheridan film, which was seen by very few in comparison to the Netflix. If you believe that, you may well form the opinion that I am I'm somehow guilty of this.
Yes. And you see, this thing in society, we sometimes, you look at the person who is maybe very well respected or is considered, the nice, quiet guy, and then you look at somebody else who is a little more brash or fits the mold, so to speak, and it's easy to look in that direction and say, well, it must have been him. So this is the thing. I always think it's not about taking sides it's not about defending someone who could be innocent or guilty. It's about looking at the facts and then making a decision. But if the facts are presented wrongly, how can you make that decision?
Yeah, I'd agree. Anyway, I mean, life goes on. Those projects, those film projects came out last year, and last year was 2021. My life was it was like being tied to the back of a wild, out of control horse.
Okay.
Things have settled down a bit now. I'm getting an immense amount of support from I'd say, to quote Flann O'Brien, the plain people of Ireland, the good people of Ireland, but particularly the young people of Ireland. They seem to be very, I don't know. It's because for 25 years I was demonized, and now I'm being idolized and eulogized by certain people.
Okay. Well, it's good that new eyes are looking upon it, because if something happens in the case, and of course you will get those new people who will say, well, like there's a lot of amateur sleuths out there, and there's people that investigate these things online. So it's good that people have fresh eyes on it, but also it's good that people can see the inadequacy of these, investigations and how things can go wrong.
So here we are, the next chapter to unfold.
So can I ask you then, obviously, with the French, let's look at the French extradition, what they're trying to do. So you mentioned earlier that in like 2016 or 17, they issued a European arrest warrant. Does that effectively mean once they issued that, you couldn't travel or without danger of being arrested?
Yeah, no, I mean, I wasn't even able to go to my mother's funeral in 2016, which was one of the saddest aspects of this whole thing, Brenda. But no, I can't leave Ireland at the moment. If I was to leave Ireland to go to anywhere, I would be arrested on point of entry, and I would, and I guess the word is the European arrest warrant is still active out there. So I'm a prisoner in Ireland, but I'm not too happy.
Literally right now, if you went to France, you would be arrested in the airport.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to go to France. I mean, that's what they've been trying to do. They've been trying to extradite me from here to France. If I went anywhere other than France, I'd be arrested at point of entry. That's the point.
Okay.
I'm a prisoner in this 20. I couldn't even. I can't even go and see my friends in Belfast. For instance, if I cross the border into, people say, "Oh, Europe, have Britain come out of the European arrest warrant?" I'm not sure if they have, but there's still an extradition treaty between Britain and France.
Britain and France.
Yeah, so the alarm bells would go off immediately.
Right, and even though the French authorities have said if you were extradited, you would get a retrial, do you think that would happen?
Well, I mean, you have that right under French law, but the problem about French law is it accepts lies and rejected statements and statements from dead people that have been discredited into evidence. They have a completely different system of law to, we call our system here in Ireland and England and America and the Commonwealth, the common law, which requires
the common law,
certain standard of proof, and you're presumed innocent until proved guilty. In France, you're presumed guilty until you can prove your innocence. So they've got a completely different system and it's based on Bonaparte. It's Boney, old Napoleon Bonaparte's.
Yes.
He introduced into French law. It gave them the right to impose French law on anywhere in the world. It's called extraterritoriality. Extraterritoriality. I can't hardly say it.
Yeah, but you see, to this day, you can see how they're using it to still have that power, but it's not fair in that respect. And do you think then that if the cold case review here, if they'd vindicated you but didn't find another suspect, do you think that the French court will ever accept that vindication?
I don't know. I mean, that's a hypothetical question at this stage, and it's a very good question to ask. And people have been asking me that actually, just locally. We'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see what this cold case review leads to, I've indicated I'm fully prepared and will cooperate in any meaningful way I can with the reinvestigation, and we'll just have to wait and see. It won't happen overnight. This is going to be a fairly sort of protracted thing. I'm guessing it will probably take at least a year or two. But at least it's happening. And although it's not a total vindication, which is what I've always been hoping, to achieve before I die, it's certainly feeling to me personally, subjectively, like a partial vindication. There's been a shift, and I know that because of the way people have been responding and reacting to me over the last 2 or 3 weeks. I've got a lot of people come up to me saying they're really, really pleased to hear this is going on. They've always believed me to be innocent, and they're right behind me.
Okay, it's good that you're getting the support. Can I touch upon then, some other things like what I call the black humor admissions? So things you said they were black humor and your sarcasm and part of your character. Do you feel that some things you've said in the past have gotten you into trouble more with the law?
Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the DPP 2001 critique, which anybody who really wants to be an expert on the case or have interior knowledge of it should read. He referred to those as my alleged informal admissions. And in the chapter which he deals with that, he says clearly it was indicative of my sense of dark humor, sarcasm, irony, or whatever. And I mean, clearly, I would. What did the French singer say? I regret nothing. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I have got regrets. That was just me. But it was actually acknowledged by the DPP that actually that was an indication of my humor. I've got a fairly dark sense of humor.
And do you think that in those moments, that when you said those things to those people,
so let's identify what they were specifically. Yeah. I think there was a newspaper, a news editor who I was working for. There were a couple of other people. I mean, anyway. So they were, I think, the ones you're talking about.
Yeah, and the young boy, the 14-year-old boy, and the couple.
The thing is, they were all made, and the DPP's report, again, I keep referring to it, talks about this. There's a thing called suggestibility, and when you tell somebody, say I said about you, Simon, he's right fucking bollocks, by the way. I mean, he never paid me.
Yeah.
You might be, you might not be, but anyway, don't take this personally. No, he's right, Simon. Do you know what he did? He went off and he did this and that and the other. And then you tell people, if you tell people a certain thing and they maybe don't like you a bit because maybe they've got some unfounded reason to be prejudiced, they can often tend to believe that. And that's what happened in this case. And the DPP commented on this.
Right.
By going around and the guards telling people, and to be honest with you, as a journalist of many years outstanding, if I was investigating this, a story, and I was told by my trusted Garda, anonymous sources, have no doubt it is that fucking so-and-so Simon or, Bailey in my case, I'd probably tend, I might be always questioning, but I probably tend to sort of believe they were telling me the truth. And that's what happened at the beginning. A lot of the media actually bought the line the guards were saying to them, have no doubt it's that. And we know this because I tell you what, we got a hold of transcripts of tapes, recorded conversations between the media and the guards. And they were talking about me in very, very, disrespectful terms, to say the least. They were talking about me as a so-and-so effing English B, beginning with B and with X.
They already had a prejudice towards you.
Yeah, and it was actually, it was quite clear on the first arrest. And it was like, I think the one, I can't remember who said it to me, one of them, he's probably dead now, but I mentioned this in court as well, so it's on record. If you think an English so-and-so can get away with doing this, and the emphasis was always on the Englishness, and I'm actually more Welsh than I am English.
Yeah.
So I was picking up xenophobia an 800 years of historic prejudice.
Right. Yeah, and it can happen. It is because, as you said, there's a deep history there, and for some people, especially 20, 30 years ago, that was very inherent in Irish society.
Yeah, and I don't think it is. It may still be there in a very minimal way, but modern Ireland is quite different from the Ireland that I came to in 2000 and in 1991 when I first came.
One part of this investigation, which is very surreal, is the whole Marie Farrell thing, because Marie Farrell, her testimony, she says that she said it was you on Kilfather Bridge. She had no doubt. She said you threatened her and all of these things. But then she redacts all of these and said the Gardaí coerced her, and then she doesn't name the person. So, what's your opinion about all that to this day, about her testimony?
Right. So I think there are many victims in this. What I would, say was a conspiracy to avert the course of justice. There's the original victim, Madame du Plantier. There's her family. Then you have myself and my ex-partner, Jules, our families. And then you've got other people who were drawn into this conspiracy by cops who... So Maria Farrell saw somebody, and it wasn't me, in Skull High Street on the Saturday, I think the 21st of December, 1996. And she gave a description of this person. And they were wearing a black coat. She thought they looked foreign, and they appeared to be following Madame de Plantier. And she put the height down as 5'8" in the original statement. They took 3 other statements from her. And by the time they took the last statement, the height of the person got up to, I think, 6'2", which is still 2.5 inches shorter than I am. But then they told, and now Maria Farrell said this when she was in court. And, I staged an unsuccessful attempt to sue the state back in 2014. And as part of that proceeding, she actually said that they convinced her that I was the murderer, and that to identify me as the person that she'd seen fleetingly in the early hours of the morning, walking maybe 3 or 4 miles away from the scene. And she believed then at that point that I probably was the murderer, and she subsequently retracted that statement in 2005, I think it was, But my answer to that question is really, she's another victim, and she was manipulated. She was manipulated and used by the bad cops.
Yes, and going on to that, then the abandoned phone recordings. So you said earlier about the transcriptions and the tapes, but a lot of these recordings from Bandon Garda Station, when they were used in the Fennelly Commission, a lot of things came out in that too, didn't it?
They did, yeah, and it was interesting. I've got the transcripts of them. It's a pity we didn't get the whole lot, because the lots were destroyed. They were dumped, but it wasn't to do with anything nefarious or like destroying evidence. There was a big flood in Bandon back in at a certain point, and a lot of the things just got ruined. No, the Fennelly Commission found, there was the Fennelly Commission said they couldn't actually find proof of the guards actually breaking the law by making false statements, but they did say there was evidence within the transcripts that they were thinking about doing that. And one of the phrases was that there were 2 detectives talking. One detective said to the other, "Well, we're going to have to get that out of the statement. That's got to be shredded."
Right.
So there was clear evidence that there was certainly a will to commit a very serious criminal offence.
Right, exactly, yes.
But there was never quite enough proof for either GSOC or the Fennelly Commission to accuse, or j'accuse, as the French would say.
Yeah, exactly. And just as regards some of the theories then, because, there's all these things about the ex-lover, Bruno, the hitman maybe from her husband, all of these different things. Do you have any theory yourself that what happened?
I had a very strong feeling very early on as the lead journalist on it, and I wasn't the only person who felt this as well. This was felt that it was something to do with France. And when there's a Latin phrase, qui bono, who benefits.
Mm.
And one of the first things you do when you're looking at a crime is to see who would benefit from the death of a certain person. Now, we know, and I know this factually, I don't know exactly how much, but there was a large amount of insurance money on Madame de Plantier. Okay? She's married to a guy, the third wife. He's already in a relationship with a woman he subsequently marries after she, is killed, assassinated, or whatever you want to say in Ireland. And it always seemed very highly suspicious. But because the guards and the one chief lead detective, decided he was going to put me in the frame from day one, they never bothered. They did go to France to make some inquiries. They never spoke to the husband. They actually weren't allowed to speak to anybody. And I think a group of them in early 1997 spent a week really just being having a holiday in Paris. So there was never any. No, so I'm hoping now that bit of the investigation, which should have been done there 25 years ago, might now commence with the cold case review.
When you went there and the scene of the crime in the very beginning, when you went there as a journalist, and you were checking out things around the house and doing what a journalist does, do you?
Well, I mean, I didn't check out things around the house because I went to the scene.
Yeah,
and I was asked to go to the scene, and in case your listeners or readers don't know, I was the correspondent, the local correspondent for it was then called the Cork Examiner, De Peer, what they call it in Cork,
yeah.
De Peer, and Eddie Cassidy, their staff reporter, rang me and gave me bare-bone details and a location and sent me out on the story. And this is the Monday before Christmas, and I went out there, and if I'd have been out, best thing that could have happened is I'd have got home later on and somebody said, "Oh, there's been a phone call from the Cork Examiner. They were trying to get you." And if I'd have been out, I wouldn't have actually turned up at the scene as the first journalist.
Right. Do you feel that the police looked at that, you being there, then later as like the killer returning to the scene of the crime?
That's what they were saying. But I mean, that's just that's just so crazily fantastic, isn't it? A reporter goes out, commits a crime, and then disappears somehow, not leaving any evidence at all. No DNA, nothing. Must be very clever to do that, and then turns up as the reporter on the scene. I mean,
yeah, it's like a Hollywood movie.
It's beyond fiction, isn't it? Really, beyond fiction.
My last question, which is the last question, but do you think that you could ever sit down with her son and have like a face-to-face?
Well, do I want to? Does he want to? I don't think so. It may be. I thought you were going to do. You remember Columbo, Peter Falk, that great actor. He's
Yeah.
Just before I go, there's one last question.
Oh yeah, I understand. Yeah. The one that gets you.
Yeah, exactly. I thought you were going to hit me.
No, I'm not doing that. I'm not closing the case today. Yeah.
On that, I'm totally sympathetic to her son, who I think does believe. Now, I think there's actually maybe a bit of a shift in, thinking and feelings in France. I'm not sure because I've not seen anything to do with them. No, I mean, all I've done is over the years, I've always expressed my total sympathy to her family. And my prayer, as I said, has always been, Buikos Ladia, that the truth comes out. And the truth being that I'm not the murderer.
Yes. The thing about this case is it's a long time saying it, isn't it? A long time, and it's taken over your life, because I imagine as a journalist now, maybe you have less work because of this whole situation.
Oh, well, I haven't really been able to work functionally as a journalist for many years because of this. It's come, once the journalist becomes the subject of the story, he's no longer, he can't actually be a viable reporter. So that's why I focus on my poetry. And I should just probably say I've got 2 collections of poetry. I've got a new DVD out. I'm trying to make a podcast. When I say trying, it's a long process, and I'm in the process of making a podcast, which I hope will be out later this year.
Well, good luck with that. Yeah,
I've got a one-man poetry and storytelling show, which I've been performing locally in West Cork, and I'm hoping to maybe take that on the road at some point. I've got a new home, a new sort of future. My sympathies are also to Jules as well, because she was very very, very. She was arrested twice, and they treated her very, very badly. Yeah, so I'm just hoping the truth comes out.
I hope for your sake, I hope for Sophie Toscan the Plantier's family that the truth comes out, and just for the people of Schull as well that have had this.
Yeah, absolutely. They were another line of victims, really, because it really split the community.
Yes. So, Eoin, listen, it's been lovely talking to you.
Gurv Mila Margaret and Iowa, and we'll wait and see what the next chapter brings.
Brilliant. And look, good luck with the rest of your endeavours. And I hope things work out for you. And we'll talk again in the future. Mr. Eoin Bailey, everyone.
Thank you very much. Gurv Mila. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Eoin Bailey, for coming on the show. And, we wish you the best of luck in your legal cases. And we hope everything works out for you. And we appreciate you taking the time to tell your side of the story, because in this case, obviously, there are lots of stories and lots of one-sided stories. And we don't want to say if someone's innocent or guilty, but the truth of the matter is you cannot be proven guilty until all the facts and all the evidence is there. And in the Irish courts, they have deemed you innocent. In the French courts, they have deemed you guilty. And unfortunately, there are different criminal systems, and which is right, who knows? But the truth of the matter is, if you are vindicated, these people who accused you will not come out and say they were wrong. And everybody deserves a fair trial and a fair hearing. And we cannot just base it completely on character. And even though people may watch the documentaries and feel Eoin Bailey is the killer, this is not always the case. You have to look beyond this. And some people may say to me, "Oh, you're defending him, Simon," but I'm not defending anybody. I'm defending the facts and I'm defending the case. And it's a brutal case. And, I feel sorry for the family of Sophie Toscan du Plantier. And I feel that her death is a tragedy. And this thing can be hopefully solved one day. Will it be Eoin Bailey? I don't think so. But if it is, I stand corrected. And will it be somebody else, another suspect? I don't know either. I don't know. I'm neutral in all of this. I just see the facts and I present them as I see them, and I'm talking to the person. So for me, it's an intriguing case and it's a tragic case, and we just hope that it's resolved after all these years, because it's destroyed lots of people's lives. The people of Schull, Eoin Bailey, his partner Jules, Sophie Toscan du Plantier's family, her son, lots of people. And this needs to be resolved in some way or the other. Will that ever happen? Who knows? We don't know. Maybe the evidence is lost. Maybe these people will go to their grave not knowing the truth. But I think a younger generation now would like to know more. And unfortunately, in society, once you're painted and tarred with that brush, you're the suspect. There's no going back. Even if you're proven innocent, people will always look at you in that light. But we have to look beyond character. We have to look beyond what people think of you, their personal opinions, and get the facts. Because you don't have to like somebody. But if they're innocent, they're innocent. Just because you don't like them doesn't mean they're guilty. This has nothing got to do with it. And whether we think of Eoin Bailey as somebody who was brash in his own words, or we think of him as intimidating or a unique character, it doesn't mean anything. So we have to only look at the facts. And if the Irish court is wrong, they're wrong. If the French court is wrong, they're wrong. But we have to find the definitive answers. And I hope one day we do, for everybody's sake. So thank you again, Eoin, for coming on the show and telling us your side of the story. I'll let the viewers decide. Watch the documentaries, listen to this podcast and hear Eoin's version, and you decide for yourself. And everybody has their own opinion. But for me, we just have to wait and see and hope that something comes from all of this with the new cold case and with the new steps forward in DNA evidence. Let's hope we can kind of find out the answer once and for all. And just say, obviously for Sophia's family and everything, rest in peace, Sophia. And it's been a long time and it's a lot of pain and tragedy, but we hope that everybody can move on and things can change in the near future. So my name is Simon Kay. This is the Collective Whisper podcast. Thank you again for listening. We hope you've enjoyed the show, however controversial it may be, and we hope to hear you back again in the future for more entertaining guests. So until then, take care of yourself, take care of your family and the people you love. Until next time, bye-bye.